Okay, so my mom and dad had me. My mom was 19, I think my dad was 18. They met at a bar or club on the dance floor. My mom was actually with someone else at the time, and she said it was just one of those like love at first sight type of things. And she ended up dumping her boyfriend for my dad, who she hardly knew at all. He was in the like rodeo type of business. I don't know if he roped or what he did, but he did rodeos, and I think he traveled doing rodeos. And he's from Texas, but his father that adopted him got stationed in Sierra Vista in Arizona, and I think one of the rodeo things was in Phoenix or whatever. Anyway, that's where they met. She dumped her boyfriend, got with my dad. They had me. My dad basically was unfaithful. My mom found out, and left him. But she was so in love with him. When she had another kid with another man named Trevor, she told my dad about him, and my dad said he wanted to get back together and that he would raise him as his own. And my mom left Trevor for my dad even after what he had done to her, because she was just still so in love with him. And so he comes back. They try to make things work. And then I don't remember exactly what happened, but they got into an argument. She tells my dad to leave, that they're done. And my brother Tyson ends up going into like NICU, and the doctor basically tells my mom there's no way he's gonna survive throughout the night. And so I don't think my dad really knew what was going on, and he was just still trying to argue. And my mom is obviously extremely stressed out, and my mom told him to leave. She went to she's at the hospital with my brother Tyson, has a bunch of family members praying around him for his survival. And I don't think my dad really knew what the situation was, and he's calling and arguing that he still has stuff at the house or apartment or whatever that he needs to get. And I think my grandma tells my mom, he's stable, he's fine right now, just go help Kevin, which is my dad's name, go help him get his stuff so he can leave, whatever. And she goes back, gets the stuff for him, and then just collapses and breaks down and is crying. And he kind of realizes the seriousness of how she's feeling, and he tells her, like, I want to help you, I want to be here for you, like. But my mom is just so overwhelmed, and he's such just an added stress that she tells him, just leave, just leave, I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, I do not want to be with you, like, just get out of here. And so he understands, like, what she's saying is coming from the heart, and it's very sincere. Like, all she's thinking about is losing one of her sons. And I don't think he realized what was happening at the moment. He was just being selfish, whatever. And so him realizing how serious she is, he leaves. And on top of that, him saying that he wanted Tyson to be his son and one of his own, according to my mom, his actions didn't really meet that, where he paid more attention to me, played more with me, and kind of ignored Tyson. And when he ran into Tyson's biological father at a bar, got into a fight with him, yelling at him, saying that he's my son, stay away, blah blah blah. They get into a fight. Anyway, the story is kind of all over the place. My dad leaves, go back to Texas. He realizes he can't be with my mom. She doesn't want to be with him. Tyson, my brother, ends up surviving throughout the night. And my whole life, I knew my dad loved me. I knew he wanted to be there for me. And for whatever reason, I just knew he couldn't. I knew that, I knew there was some reason he just couldn't be there. And I didn't blame him for anything. I had no animosity, and there was nothing there that was anger. I could feel his love, even though he was hundreds of miles away from me. I just knew he loved me. And he would call every now and then for random birthdays. He would send me stuff every now and then. And one or two times he came to visit me. And it was even though he left when I was 2 years old, I just had this love for him. I just loved him. I knew he was my father, and I knew how much he loved me. And he didn't have to say a word. I just felt it. And I remember once I got older and more understanding, I remember my mom asking me, do you want to change your name? Because I had a stepfather. Do you want to change your name to Summerlin, which is your new dad's name? And I don't remember this, but my mom told me it. I told her, that I don't want to forget my name. And it wasn't anything against my stepdad. I love him too. I just wanted to keep my name, Stokes. And so later on, my mom asked me, do you want to collect child support from your dad because he owes you a lot of money, and if you want me to go after him for child support, I will give you all the money that he owes you because it's your money. And I remember thinking I just knew my dad was struggling. I just knew he was always struggling, and he wasn't very smart with money. For whatever reason, I just knew he was struggling, and I didn't need the money. I didn't want the money. I didn't want to put that stress on him. And I was a little kid, it's just I didn't care about the money. I did not. And I told my mom no. And every time she asked me, I think she asked me 3 times um, throughout my younger life. And it was just like, every time I remember thinking, no, I don't want to put that stress on him. And if he wants to send me money or send me whatever type of support, like, that's completely up to him. And then I found out later on from my grandmother, my dad's mom, that his new wife, he was actually sending me and my sister from another mother child support paychecks because he wanted to, not because my mom forced him to. I don't know if my sister's mom did, but he was sending those checks, but his current wife at the time was the one depositing them, or at least saying that she was depositing them. And what she was really doing was just depositing them, then putting them back into their own checking account. And I think my grandma Gail was actually the one that caught her and found a bunch of checks. And my dad confronted her, and she just said, "We need this money more than they do." Blah blah blah. Who knows? I don't really care. Anyway, my dad has always felt guilty for leaving me. I think my grandma told me this story that when he left me and my brother and my mom from Arizona to go back to Texas to his family, he wanted to kill himself, and he tried to, he drove onto oncoming traffic where there was a semi truck. Both of them going 65, 70 miles an hour, and he wanted to just hit the semi truck head on. And he said that, according to my grandma, he said that all he could picture was my face, and so he couldn't do any swerve back into his lane. And every time I saw him, I always tried to let him know that there was nothing there. There was no resentment. There was no anger. Like, I just understood that he couldn't be there in my life growing up. And I didn't care. I wasn't mad at him. But he just had so much guilt. When I graduated from my Air Force tech school, my Uncle Mike, he was retired from the Army. He told my dad that you have to go to his graduation. And my dad he felt so guilty that he said I can't go. Plus, I don't have the money. I don't have a vehicle like my Uncle Mike. He let him borrow his truck and he gave him money. just so he could see me at my graduation. And buy lunch or dinner or whatever, just hang out. And when I got to my first base in Hurlburt Field, Florida, I think I was there for 1 year, in 2009 to 2010. I found out that I got a phone call randomly, and they told me that my dad had cancer, and it was stage 4 cancer. And from what I knew of cancer, especially stage 4, from my own experiences of family members, whatever the doctor said, however many months they have, like, they were almost spot on every time. And they told my dad he had months left, stage 4, and so to me it was kind of just like, this is it, like, he's gone. And so the Air Force, luckily they gave me like a week or 2 to go see him, so I got to drive over and just spend, every day for I think it was one or 2 weeks, and just, we didn't do a lot, we just sat and talked a lot, and I would play with his adopted kids. They had a trampoline, and he had a son-in-law that I got along with really well. But yeah, it was a really awesome, week or 2 of just, it's the most time I spent with him, where it was an everyday thing of seeing each other and talking and hanging out, and it just felt like it felt like I was saying goodbye, because I knew he didn't have much time left. And I remember he talked about marijuana, like, he was ashamed. And just like how I felt of, like, how I wanted him to know that I was not mad at him, I had no resentment towards him for him leaving me, I understood that he couldn't be there, was the same way I felt about him, with marijuana. It was like, I don't judge you at all, I don't care. If it's going to help with the cancer, if it makes you feel better, I know how much time you have left in life anyway. It's like, I just don't care. Like, don't think that I'm judging you. Don't think that I'm angry at you or anything. Like, I just don't care. Like, do what you want to do. And it was, I think he had a lot of relief from that, knowing that I wasn't judging him. And honestly, I think it might have actually helped him, because he beat cancer. He did do chemo, but he also, like, everyone says that marijuana helps with cancer. Who knows? But my dad beat stage 4 cancer, and, got to live another 10 years. And on my 21st birthday, after he had beaten stage 4 cancer, for my 21st birthday, I made it a point to hang out with him, and we met in Biloxi, Mississippi. We met in Biloxi, Mississippi, and we just hung out at the Hard Rock Casino, and we drank some beers, and I might have gambled a little bit, maybe like $20, and then we went to this dance club thing, and we both just kind of sat on the sidelines and just watched. People watched. It was still really fun, and it was just an awesome moment. And I remember driving around with him, through Biloxi and Mississippi, and he would just tell me all these stories of places. He would take me to these random places, like tell me stories about each place. It was just a really nice moment. And one of the few times there was just the two of us. And no, just there wasn't a lot of those moments throughout my life where it was just me and my biological dad, Kevin. But all the moments that we did have together, I remember them so vividly. I remember as a really little kid, and I don't know exactly the age, but I remember he came to my hometown. He picked me up. We went and got a dog. It was a Queensland Heeler or Blue Tick Heeler, whatever you want to call it. We named her Sunshine. We went to a shooting range in Taylor, Arizona, and it was the first time I'd ever shot a gun, and he didn't give me any earplugs. So I remember shooting, my ears ringing, and my ears hurting and pulsing, and I just remember I shot the gun. It had to be it was some sort of revolver, but I remember it was so loud that I just started crying. And he felt terrible, put me in the truck so that I wouldn't have to deal with the sound, because they just kept shooting. We bought this puppy, and I remember going back to my house, where my mom and stepdad lived, and getting my pillow out of my room, putting it outside on the porch, putting the puppy on the pillow, and then laying down with my head on the pillow, sleeping next to it, or at least laying next to it. And then, later on, my mom had to clean the pillow. And I remember also renting this video game, Mortal Kombat, for Super Nintendo. And back then, you could only rent it, for like a day or two, and then you had to return it, and otherwise there was a bunch of fees. So we rented it under my mom's name, which I didn't know. We just, rented it from, I think it was like Kmart. And we took it to my cousin's house and was playing it there. And then, left it there, forgot about it, whatever. And then months later, I go to my cousin's house again. I was like, "You guys still have this game?" I was like, "Yeah, we still have it. Like, why wouldn't we?" Assuming like, oh, they must have bought it or something. And then my mom gets like a gigantic fee, like hundreds of dollars for a rental. And of course she went and fought it, saying that, her ex-husband bought it and she didn't know about it. So luckily they didn't charge her the hundreds of dollars. But all those little moments, I just remember them so vividly. And all the guilt that he had with me, he never let it go. And I never understood why. And I always tried to tell him, like, anytime I was with him, it was just like, I tried to let him know, I tried to show him, like, I don't care. I have no resentment, I have no anger. Like, I just want to, like, I want to be involved now. Like, who cares about the past? Like, there's no reason that we can't do things now. Like, I don't hate you. I'm not mad at you. I've always felt the love. Like, anyone that knew my dad, you just had to be around him and you knew, like, you could just feel the love. And I think that he passed that on to me, at least I like to think so. So anyway, started having kids. My Uncle Rusty would come down after each kid. He would come down and see them, meet them. And he would always invite my dad, but he just had so much guilt that he would never come. It was like, I can't, like, I just, I feel too bad, or, whatever it is, it just felt like a burden. And I wish I could just talk sense into him, like, come meet your grandkids. And after we had our third child, I got a vasectomy. My wife and I were, both agreed, like, we're done having kids, like, this is it. And every year, starting from the first kid, we would make it a point to take our kids to see our grandmas, their great-grandmas, because we didn't know how much time anyone had left, and it was just kind of like, I felt like my grandma, my dad's mom, Grandma Gail, I felt like she always got put on the back burner, and it's just because it was just so hard to get to Texas. We weren't going to fly there with, newborns. Driving there would still really suck too. And then they also couldn't come here in their conditions. My grandma, and it was just really tough. And so finally, when we got to the point where we could actually drive to Texas, it was this last year, and we're like, okay, like, we are going to go to Texas. Our youngest is 2 years old. He can handle 12-hour drive, whatever it is. We'll just stop and do potty breaks as much as we have to. It's gonna suck, but we'll do it. And we really want them to meet the last great grandma that they had not met yet. And it was going to be a surprise on Christmas Day, or it was going to be a surprise for Christmas, that she would meet them, and also that my dad would meet his grandkids for the first time. And 5 days before Christmas, it was like a few days before we were going to leave for Texas, I get a phone call at 1 in the morning from my Uncle Rusty. And immediately I'm like, that's it, my grandma's gone. They don't get to meet their last great grandma. We were too late. And he tells me that my dad had passed away, which I was just not expecting that at all. And so he never got to meet his grandkids. And it was very, very valuable lessons for me. Fortunately for me, I don't carry the same bone as, wanting to just be with a bunch of women. The romance side of it, I've always been more conservative with just, being committed to the relationship that I'm in. It was just very unexpected. My dad had passed away. And when I went to Texas and went to his funeral, it just happened to be the coldest day in history's, the coldest day in decades in Texas, in that area. He wanted to be hand buried, it was miserable. It was freezing cold. And the funeral home, thank you for everything, but at the same time, it was terrible. I was really, really looking forward to all the stories that people had to say about my dad. Like, I know he got into a lot of mischief. I don't know, I did a lot of funny stuff, and I just wanted to hear people talk about it. And I didn't care, you know, how bad the stories were, or like how bad the things were that he got into, because I don't know a lot about my dad, and I really wished people would just go up and tell their stories. But the funeral home was they're very pushy. They didn't really let anyone talk. My uncle went up and talked. You know, it was hard for him to talk in the first place, so he didn't get a whole lot out. And then, you know, he said the floor was open to anyone else that wanted to say anything really quick, and no one else went up. So I went up and tried to say what I could, but I just couldn't really get much out myself. And what I did get out was maybe like a minute worth of stuff. So that's why I'm making this video, because I just felt like I owed more to it, and I just wanted to get more off my chest. And if there are any family members that actually watch this or listen to it that knew my dad, like I would love to hear the stories, even if you just have to record yourself and send it to me privately. You know, I do understand how hard it is to talk in front of a bunch of people, or to put something like this that's really vulnerable online. But everyone that knew my dad knew that he was a good man. Everyone that knew him didn't have to even talk to him, that knew that they could just feel the love. Like, he just loved everyone, even people that really had a lot of faults. And I think it really came down to just like, what would Jesus do, or how would Jesus be? Or I think that's really like exactly what my dad, you know, thought and wanted to be like. It's like, whoever Jesus was as a person when he existed, however he, you know, would have acted in my dad's imagination towards everyone, you know, the prostitutes, to the sinners. He was very loving towards everyone. Like, that's, I think, who my dad wanted to be like. And, you know, of course he had his faults, but he was very, very loving. And I think he definitely passed that on to me. Like, I always try to see the good in people, and he was a really good man. He did a lot of, you know, crazy stuff, I'm sure. You know, the stuff with my mom is like a tell. And it doesn't take away from the fact that he was a good person, and he cared for everyone, and he would go out of his way to help anyone. And you know, the friends that he had in the end, I think a lot of them took advantage of him, and I think a lot of them took advantage of his death, which is very, you know, sad. But I don't think, you know, looking down on earth after his death and seeing those people, like, I still don't think he would have hated them or been mad at them, you know. I think he still would have been understanding and still loving, you know, even though it takes away from, you know, me and my sister's, you know, inheritance of his stuff. Another cool sidebar with my dad was they had a bunch of property in Texas where they owned the mineral rights to, and he would find a ton of arrowheads. And my uncles gave me, you know, all of the arrowheads they could find of his collection, and so I split them in half of, like, you know, the best ones I could, and then gave my sister, you know, half of them, and then made a little shadow box, you know, of my half. So it was just really cool that he found all those. And it's funny how alike we are, because I'm really big into rock hounding, And I didn't really know that my dad also was, until after he had passed away. But that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to say a little bit more than I did at the funeral. And, if I could tell my dad today, I would tell him that I love him. I never had any animosity, resentment, anger, nothing like that ever. I was always understanding of his situation. And I hope to continue to be like him as far as the kindness and seeing the best in people. And yeah, I love you, Dad. A couple more things I want to say about my dad is to end more on a positive note. Anytime I was with him, it was nothing but laughter. It was nothing but jokes and laughter. And I mean, from when I was a little kid, when he picked me up for the first time that I remember, a bunch of fart jokes. And I remember I cussed in front of him, and it was a Mortal Kombat. It was the Mortal Kombat movie, and it had to do with when, I can't remember names or whatever, but I remember the dude does the splits and punches Goro in the balls. And I reenacted the scene, and I remember cussing, and I was like 4 or 5 years old or something. And my mom would have been pissed off at me. But I remember my dad just started laughing, and I remember thinking oh, we're the same person. He just thought it was funny, even though I cussed as a little kid. But then he did, realize oh, I gotta be adult. Hey, you can't be doing that, even though that was really funny. And I understood exactly what he was saying. He's like, okay, I can't do that in front of my mom, but I can say it in front of you, and we can laugh about it if we're alone together. But I remember he also he had drank his beer, and I think I don't know if I'm pretty sure I knew it was empty, or maybe I did drink it, but I don't know who took the picture, but I grabbed one of his beers and I drank it or pretended to drink it. I'm pretty positive I pretended to drink it just because I knew someone was taking a picture of me. So there's a photo somewhere out there of me drinking my dad's beer, and I think he's sleeping in the background or something, but it's pretty funny. And let's see, I'm trying to remember exactly. I remember he was telling some story about something, like someone that made him mad. He's like, I was so mad I could just spit. And I remember interrupting. I was like, what? Why didn't you just spit then? If you're so mad you had to spit, just spit. And he never you could tell that he never actually thought that statement through. And he's just oh, I guess I could have just spit and it would have been over with, but I kept going on. But just one of those really funny realizations that, to me, from someone not from Texas that isn't used to that type of phrase, was just I'm so mad I can spit. That doesn't make sense to me. But to him, it was such a common thing. He never stood back and realized oh, it's a really funny saying that we say, and he laughs hysterically just from that little comment. And I remember him telling me this story one time where he went hunting, by himself, and he gives some big long story where his stepdad, no, this is his biological dad, he told him to put the safety on the gun, something like that, before you go hunting. And then when you get to the location, where you're hunting, then take the safety off, then get, in the position to shoot. And so he wasn't used to that. He was used to just going ready to go at all times, or ready to just fire. And so he gets to his stand. He's just hanging out and by himself. And right in front of him is like, the biggest deer or elk or, whatever it is. I don't remember the story to the T, but he said like whatever it was in front of him that he had hunted before, this is the biggest one he'd ever seen by far. And so he sets his sights on his target, takes a breath out, pulls the trigger, and the trigger doesn't move. And then he remembers, oh, I have the safety on because my dad made me put the safety on. So like, okay. Reaches back, as slow as he can, tries to take the safety off. And click. Whatever is in front of him runs away. And so he's maybe I'm paraphrasing. Like, I'm pretty sure it was either the safety or the bullet wasn't even loaded, and so he had to like reach back and load it as slow as he could. Either way, whatever's in front of him, deer, elk, I don't think they have elk in Texas. Gigantic deer, size of an elk. Here's this tiniest little click and runs away. So he's pissed off. He's like cussing under his breath, walks all the way home, tells the whole story of how it's his dad's fault that he didn't get this amazing trophy. And his dad just sitting there whittling or whatever, just listening to the story, and just, that's a good hunting story. As if the whole thing is made up. And my dad told me this whole story, and I remember, maybe it's not that funny, but I remember I laughed for like 20 minutes straight. I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And that's just how it was with my dad. Like, we laughed a lot. I remember driving when we were in Biloxi, and he was drinking coffee or something, and I'd always make fun of his accent, and whatever phrases he would say, I'd always try to remember them and repeat them, especially with the Texas accent. And I remember I was driving, he was trying to drink something, and I either stopped or sped up or whatever, but I accidentally made him like spill his coffee all over himself. And I just remember, like, I looked at him and I was like, "Did I get you?" He's like, "Yeah, you got me." And and then we both just laughed for 20 minutes. It was like, stupid stuff, but it was just really funny for us, especially in the moment. But there's something else I really wanted to say and remember, but I can't really think of it right now. But I definitely wanted to say, like, I think it had to do with my mom. She told me when she was with my dad, of all the people she had been with and everything, like, he was the most fun. Even though he had his flaws, anytime they were together, he just wanted to go on adventures and laugh and experience things new and laugh and make other people laugh and make other people feel comfortable. And I think that's an amazing trait, and I hope I can carry it on for him. Like, I do love making people laugh. Like, that's one of the things I really love to do, and I think that definitely comes from him. And I love making people feel comfortable too. 'Cause I grew up religious. I grew up, with my own beliefs and whatever. And it's like, none of that takes away from the fact that we're all humans. We're all this, my beliefs. We're all sons of God. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all descendants of the same, probably first two people. Who knows? So it's like, who are we to judge anyone? And if I'm around anyone, I just want to make them feel comfortable. And I especially love to make people laugh, even though I'm not, a comedian. And from my YouTube videos, that people that know me only from the YouTube videos, that don't know me at all in real life, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm not like a good joke teller, even though I like to write my own jokes, and I just will keep them to myself. I love the inside jokes. I love when I get to know someone and, make them laugh, where it's like only you and I know what is going on. Like, one of my first deployments, I was working out with this guy, and I could tell he was a genuine person. And we're working out together. We have water bottles, and when he's doing his sets, I put my water bottle right next to his. And he gets up from his set, and he's like, I go down to do mine, but right before I'm about to start, hey, which water bottle is mine? I was like, oh, it's the one on the left. And so he grabs the one on the left and is drinking it while I'm doing my sets. And so what he does is he puts his water bottle in a different spot. And while he's doing his reps, I grab my water bottle, I put it right next to his. And then he gets up, is like, which water bottle is mine? I was like, oh, it's the one on the right. And then I go down to do my reps. And then we switch. And then he takes his label off. And then puts it somewhere else. And so while he's doing his reps, I take my label off and I put it right next to his. And then he gets up, he's like, which water bottle is mine? I was like, oh, it's the one on the left. So he drinks it. I do my reps. Then he crushes it. Puts it somewhere else. And then I crush, while he's doing his reps, I crush mine. And I put it right next to his. And then, the fifth time, I'm doing my reps. He looks over. He sees two water bottles with no labels, and they're both crushed, and they're right next to each other. And he just starts busting up laughing. And I think that's how my dad was too. And I think I'm exactly like him without even realizing it. And it's just, I hope I can carry it on, and I hope I can pass it on. And I know he wasn't there physically, but I could always feel him. And I hope to learn from his mistakes, and with my kids, I do want to be there physically, and I do want to be there emotionally, and I do want to be there spiritually, where I want to I just want my kids to know I don't have to say a word. They can just feel the love that I have for them, the same way that I felt the love that I had for my dad. So that's how I want to end this, on a positive note, because my dad was a good man. He was hilarious, he was funny, but more than all, he was very loving. And yeah, that's it.